Welcome to the For Your Soul podcast, a podcast for your soul.
Welcome to the For Your Soul podcast, a podcast for your soul devoted to sound doctrine and biblical truth. My name is Milton Quintanilla, and thank you for joining me today on today's episode. First of all, I just want to say that this is the beginning of a new season. In the previous episode, I did a 1-year anniversary episode, which you can go ahead and check that out in the archives, and I just want to once again say thank you to everyone who has listened or who has started listening and are willing to check out this podcast in their growth and in the Lord and in the Word and theology. And I'm just so thankful to the Lord for giving me this opportunity to create content for Him, for His glory. That being said, I want to see if I can create even more content. For instance, I want to try to push towards twice a week. And I'm meaning do an episode twice a week. So hopefully I can get that done, and yeah, we're gonna just continue to grow and continue to make content that's biblically sound and spiritually edifying for us all. Amen. All right. So that being said, in today's episode, I just wanted to speak on some tips on how to create a Christian podcast. I figured with 1 year behind me, I figured that I would like to share what I've learned. Now, just so you know, I'm not an expert on podcast. Okay, I mean, when I started this thing, I had no idea what I was doing. There was a point where I almost quit because I didn't know what I was doing, and plus I was dealing with some setbacks at the beginning, which thank God I was able to get through. But nevertheless, it was a process, a journey, and even to this day, it is still a process and a journey as I continue to learn more about podcasting, as I continue to learn about creating videos, graphic design, posting to social media, meaning in the context of like promotion, because obviously that's also a big deal. You want to make sure you get your content recognized. You want to draw in as many followers as possible, and of course, all of that takes time. It's not overnight. It's not like I will all of a sudden have 1 million followers. Nor do I think I'll get there, but I just think just the importance of staying consistent and creating quality content will pay off, and especially for Lord, because again, we're doing this for Him, and we need more Christian content creators, in which they're able to utilize their gifts and talents for the Lord and equipping His church and reaching the lost in whatever content that they create. That being said, if you're somebody who listening right now, if you're somebody who has never made a podcast before and you don't know where to start, then I hope that today's episode would be somewhat of a small push to get you going. All right, you got to start somewhere. Don't wait till you have everything. Don't wait till you're an expert on things, because like I just said, like it's all a process, and the best way to get started is to just do it. That's all it takes. All right, so I'm going to give you some tips that you can get started to get started with. So as a believer, we know that God has given us gifts, not just simply spiritual gifts, but also service gifts, also, and plus abilities, talents, and stuff like that, in which we are to cultivate for Him. And I know for some that comes through Christian content creation. Now, that can mean, for example, YouTube videos, TikTok, social media, podcasts, writing, blogs, music, etc. So as a believer, automatically, your content is going to have that faith perspective. And right then and there, you already have something to get started as. Now the question is, what is the topic you're most passionate about? Because we know that with Christian content, there's tons of stuff that we can cover. For instance, obviously, we talk about the Bible. You can talk about theology, or in another case, you want to talk about apologetics, religious freedom, evangelism, or as I've seen with some people, they've done content solely addressing false teaching, or they do politics from a Christian worldview, and then of course you have Christian-based news. So right there, you have a variety. You have tons of stuff to choose from. It all boils down to what you want, and you have to ask yourself, what will your audience expect from you? What type of content do you plan to give to them? Because obviously, whatever content you make is gonna reach a specific audience. Some people are gonna tune in and say, "Wow, this is awesome. This is what I need to learn." Now, other people, maybe not so much. Maybe that's not their thing. But nevertheless, you want to start somewhere. You want to start with a topic that you feel like will be not just relevant, but also spiritually edifying. And I know in my case was really just, as I always say, the For Your Soul podcast is one that is devoted to sound doctrine and biblical truth. And I try to talk about different biblical and theological topics through in every episode, in pretty much every episode, whether it's one-off or a series of episodes for those who have been following along. And I try to make that as easy and understandable as possible, because I know that not everyone is has gone to Bible college or seminary. They don't know all the jargon, the theological terms, but we need content in which people can learn those things, but in a way that's easy for them to understand. And I just think that even with Christian content creation, it's while it's good, and like I said, I think it's very essential today, it should not be a replacement for the church. And if anything, I feel like what we're doing for what a lot of Christian content is doing today in terms of like sharing biblical truth and theological teaching is something that the church itself should be doing automatically. Now, the issue today is that churches aren't doing those things at all. They neglect biblical teaching altogether. Theology is almost taboo to them. If anything, they just rather deal with more self-centered, motivational style teaching, just to keep the congregation happy. But there's no real meat. There's no real substance behind those messages, and you can be in church for years and never really learn anything. And I'm sure for some who are listening right now, you've been there. You're probably struggling with that right now. Probably maybe you're at a point where you're like, man, I'm thinking about moving to another church because it's just so hard to find some. It's so hard to find one that is biblically sound, and this is especially important in our day and age, where objective truth is denied. There's just all these godless ideologies in the world today, and the world is just based on what you see in the news, and I'm sure with your own eyes, the world is fallen. It is a hellscape. And we need biblical truth like never before. We need to preach the gospel like never before. And that being said, if you're going to get started for Christian podcasts, you want to make sure that whatever content you choose, you want to make sure that it is edifying for the church or even for reaching the lost. Maybe you want to do, like I mentioned before, one topic we want to talk about is evangelism. Maybe you want to preach the gospel through that. You want to share. Obviously, witnessing obviously would be much better off in person. But hey, if whatever you share through your podcast reaches somebody for the Lord, then amen. Then guess what? You've done your job, and because God will use that. You know what I'm saying? And that's something. And God works in mysterious ways. You know what I'm saying? Because even when we think that our content isn't reaching anybody or isn't blessing anybody, or you think, I'm not getting many listens, right? Or if you're starting, you may think, I don't think anybody's gonna listen to what I have to say. But you know what? God works in mysterious ways. He'll use that content and he'll bless somebody, even if you never meet them, right? Especially if they live across the world or across the country, whatever, and you never meet them, but yet they're still blessed. And they'll look back and say, "Man, I was really blessed by that content." And who knows? Maybe that person will contact you one day on social media and be like, "Thank you for your episodes." I mean, I know in my case I have, and let me tell you, like it's always a blessing to do that. It's always a blessing to do that because it's very humbling, and it just makes you feel like what I'm doing, what I'm doing is not in vain. So when you're starting out with the podcast, do not let your fears of, oh, no one's gonna listen to me ever get to you, because you never know. You never know. I mean, it's better to try and to fail than to not try at all, right? And you want to, and as an individual, as a Christian, you want to expand yourself. You want to expand your gifts. Just like how we walk in sanctification, right? We grow in holiness. We grow in Christ-likeness. We grow closer and closer to God. We want to also use that in our gifts and talents. And for many of us, for instance, when you learn a new skill, whether it's learning to drive, whether you're learning a new language or play an instrument or sport, guess what? You have to learn. You have to go through the process. You can't. You're not gonna just simply just start off as an expert. Nobody has started off as an expert. Not even the greats, those at the top, those who are the best at their field and what they do. They were not born experts. They had to learn, and they had to put it, and they had to put in the work. And that's exactly what you need to do when to get started. You have to recognize that this is gonna take work. Doing a podcast is gonna take work. But as you keep at it and you continue to make content, then guess what? It's going to pay off. And trust me, you're going to be very satisfied with what you're doing. So, like I said earlier, like I just said, you must have a topic in mind. Otherwise, you don't know where to start. And whatever topic you pick for whatever episode you make or whatever topic in particular you want the podcast to be about, you're going to have to do research. That means you're going to have to read books, watch related content or listen to related content, read the word, especially the word. Obviously, you want to be able to address things from a biblical perspective. I liken it to almost like a research paper where you have to go online, you have to search up articles, and you gotta and that's related to what you're researching, and put it all together. Same thing with a class presentation. You have to prepare everything ahead of time, and that's the same thing with this podcast. And yeah, like I said, it takes work, but at the same time, what I've benefited from that is that it actually forces you to learn, which is a good thing, because after doing that, guess what? You've acquired new information that you never even had before, and that's pretty cool. For instance, when I did my episode on apologetics a while back, like, I didn't know much about apologetics apart from like the general definition of what apologetics was. But then as I researched for the episode, I recognized that there was so much more to apologetics than just simply just witnessing to the lost, but rather there were different approaches to them. In other words, there were different approaches to apologetics, and that was something that I had no idea about. And that's good, because it taught me to learn. It taught me to put in the work, and as a result, honestly, it's one of my favorite episodes. So, that being said, yeah, when you research the episode, you want to make it as informative as possible, because that way, when people listen to your podcast, guess what? They learn something new as well. You're not the only one learning something new. Everyone's learning something new. And on top of that, I would also suggest make it applicable for them. Because, hey, people like stuff that they can apply, right? Especially for Christians, they want to grow in the walk with the Lord. Make sure that your content is practical. You could, especially like at the very end or whatever, or throughout. I know sometimes there will be some episodes that'll be more informative than others, but towards the end, you could always be like, all right, that being said, here's 3 tips that you can apply in your life in light of what I just shared. All right, so we got the topic covered. Down the next topic, the next tip I want to share is just setting up. Okay, setting up. So in setting up for your podcast, you wanna ask yourself, what materials do I need? So when it comes to a podcast, um, you can honestly start it in the comfort of your own house. All you need is a laptop, a mic, headphones, um, a recording platform, as well as a podcast platform where you can like upload and upload your episodes, and it'll send out to all the podcast outlets like Spotify, Apple, etc., and as well as social media pages. So it's pretty. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, all of this stuff is readily accessible. It's just a matter of putting it all together. When it comes to microphone and headphones, honestly, like you can get them for really cheap. I've seen some that go for $100 or and more. So whatever fits your budget, there you go. You can get something as low as $100, and you can get started automatically. And when it comes to, for example, when you're recording for an episode, you can the program that I like to use is a program called Audacity. So in Audacity, you can record, and you could also edit the audio that you've recorded on. And the best part about this program is that it's completely free, which is awesome. What else? Oh, so Anchor. So like I just said, Audacity is good for recording. Now let's talk about where you can upload your content, and I would recommend Anchor. Okay, so Anchor, like Audacity, is another free platform. You could also record on Anchor as well. Anchor also has the option to implement your own music, especially if you're gonna use music for like the intro and the outro of your podcast. Anchor has different samples of music that you can use. And with Anchor, once you upload your episode through Anchor, then you can select like what podcast outlets will it go to. And what I love about Anchor is that it can go to like multiple podcast outlets all at once. So like you'll get some that go to, it can go to Spotify, it could go to Anchor, Google Podcasts. There's just so many on so many podcast outlets that it goes to. So, and again, it's free. It's pretty easy to use. Oh, and on top of that, Anchor also gives you the option to monetize your podcast based on the number of listeners. So it's a good way to generate some money. Obviously, starting out, you're not gonna make much, but hey, as time goes on, right, the numbers go up. So it's definitely a good way to get started. Now, moving on to social media, obviously, think of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Obviously, they're part of they're the main social media sites. TikTok, if you're somebody who likes doing video content, TikTok is a good place to post small clips of like whatever you recorded. Rumble is another nice platform, especially given that nowadays YouTube likes to censor people. Rumble is a nice alternative. What else can I share? Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. So for creating videos, the program that I like to use is called iMovie for Videos. So iMovie for Videos allows you to put together your audio recordings as well as images. So meaning like, for example, you're making a YouTube video, right? And you have audio content, but you need a thumbnail and you want to put it together. iMovie for Windows does just that. You're able to put them both together and you can make a video. Now for creating images, I would suggest the website Canva. Okay, Canva. And Canva it's a graphic design website, and you can make posts. You can make wallpaper. You can create YouTube thumbnails. There's a lot you can create, and it has while it does have a premium plan, there's much of the content on Canva is free, so you don't really have to worry about paying the premium plan. And what I like about Canva is that it's easily accessible, so that's a nice place to start. All right, so moving forward to the last step is your why. Why do you want to do this podcast? Do you want to just share it amongst your friends? Do you want to reach as many people as possible? Do you what else do you want? Or another question you want to ask yourself, like, do you want to just do a podcast for the sake of a hobby, or do you want to do something full time? These type of questions are necessary, because then that way it will give you all the more reason to keep going. And overall, the main question I would say is the main question to ask yourself is that, how can I glorify God through this podcast? Because that's what we're called to do. We're called to glorify God in everything that we do. And when you have that in mind, you recognize that this podcast it's much bigger than yourself. It's much bigger than your name on it, but rather it's making His name known to everyone who listens, whether they are believers or unbelievers. And like I said, it's very rewarding. Even if you don't make a full-time career out of it, it's still a blessing to learn, because you're learning a new skill. And like I said before, it teaches you to cultivate your gifts. Whatever you want to glorify God in, whatever you believe God is calling you to do, maybe this is for you. And again, all you got to do is try. That being said, I hope you found these tips helpful, and I hope that it would motivate you to get started on your journey as a Christian podcaster. Thank you for listening to the For Your Soul podcast. For more information, you can follow me on my social media, as well as my YouTube channel, where I upload every clip and episode of the podcast. And if you would like to contribute, you could do so at anchor.fm/foryourssoul/support. And please give a 5-star review on wherever you get your podcasts, such as Apple and Spotify. That really helps me out. Once again, this is the For Your Soul podcast, a podcast for your soul.